the underground prison, Zaraki constantly loses consciousness and awakens again and again as he fights with Unohana. We see a flashback of Rukon District from 100 years ago, where Unohana has killed several criminals trying to find someone that can give her a good fight. Then, one of her subordinates pointed out that there is a mountain of bodies that Unohana didn't notice before. From the mountain comes a young Zaraki wielding his Zanpakuto. Unohana gets stabbed by Zaraki, and she mentions how Zaraki unconsciously lowered his weapon and his power in their first fight, so he can actually enjoy the fight. Back in their present fight, Zaraki mentions that his reflexes are getting better every time his consciousness comes back. Unohana recounts Zaraki's fight with Ichigo, Noetra, Yuhabak, and how he lost simply because he sealed his power to an extreme level during their very first fight, and that every time Zaraki fights to near death, the power he sealed gets unchained more and more. It's then revealed that Unohana is repeatedly killing Zaraki and then reviving him so that he can fully release his true power. Unohana then uses her Bankai, Minazuki. Her blade turns to blood and they enter a realm composed of nothing but blood. Zaraki screams and clashes with Unohana but realizes that she can now attack him from afar using the blood in this domain, and the wound that he dealt has instantly healed along with the damage to her clothes. Unohana unleashes a flurry of strikes that covers all her openings with whips of her blood blade and beats Zaraki over and over. Zaraki notices that the blood repeatedly melts him, but he continues to attack Unohana anyway. He once again feels that he was asleep as he wakes up to one of Unohana's attacks. Unohana clarifies that Zaraki learned how to suppress himself to enjoy fights, while she learned how to heal herself so she could enjoy fights forever. Zaraki then deals the final blow and struck Unohana through her chest. As Unohana dies, Zaraki throws his Zanpakuto and begs her not to, as he is still enjoying their fight. With Unohana's last thoughts, she mentions that Zaraki has finally removed all shackles from his power and that his partner has awakened with him. Unohana dies with a smile on her face, knowing that she has done her duty. We then hear a voice in the dark calling out Zaraki's name. The voice is surprised that Zaraki can now hear her, and then we see that the one who is speaking is Zaraki's Zanpakuto. At Hu Palace, Renji and Ichigo are met with a party full of women and of course Uetsu Nimaiya, the creator of all Zanpakuto. Nimaiya's assistant Mira then reveals that the real Hu Palace is an underground battle area. Nimaiya explains that Ichigo and Renji didn't meet a single Shinigami in Hu Palace apart from himself. All the women were Zanpakuto spirits. He then explains that Shinigamis can't distinguish between their own kind and the Zanpakuto because they don't love them enough. He brings out the broken Zabimaru and Zangetsu and destroys them completely. He claims that only Zanpakutos that are not loved can be destroyed so easily. And now in the area he placed them in, Ichigo and Renji will fight the wrath of Zanpakutos. Nimaiya promises that he will reforge both Zangetsu and Zabimaru if Ichigo and Renji survives the wrath of the Zanpakuto. After 3 days, Nimaiya sees that Renji is standing and promises to reforge his Zabimaru while Ichigo has failed. Nimaiya refused to reforge Zangetsu and sent Ichigo back to the human world, and Ichigo finds himself in front of his family's clinic. Back at Hu Palace, Nimaiya speaks to himself, claiming that Ichigo needs to learn more about his roots or never come back to Soul Society at all. I'm gonna be honest, I had a different expectation of how the Zaraki and Unohana fight would go. I was betting on Zaraki, so Unohana dying was no surprise to me, even though it's still a bit sad, she's been there since the very first season. But I was actually expecting a more, I would say, explosive fight. And though the fight that we had in the anime, the ones that was shown, was really well choreographed, and it was really well animated as well. I enjoyed every frame of it. I keep pausing the the show when I watched it for the second time. I kept pausing because every frame just looks just so good, in my opinion. The contrast between the blood and Unohana and Zaraki were very well done. You can easily pick them out, and it has sort of this cinematic feel with the way that they fight. It's not just clashing swords all the time, like face to face, or sort of the usual sword fight. They jump around. Unohana makes this insane sort of bubble of slashes of blood that can repel Zaraki multiple times or even kill him actually. Um, yeah, so I was just expecting a more aggressive fight, but what we got was also very good. It's a very sort of emotional fight. It's more character focused. It's a more character focused um fight between Unohana and Zaraki in regards to their pride as being called, Kenpachi. And I do think I'm not sure, but in my perspective from what I saw in the anime, um Unohana's Bankai Minazuki both kills and heals. So the blood does melt everything that it touches. I think uh, Zaraki mentioned that throughout their fight, and the whole um, the whole thing where they showed Zaraki's hand actually melting, as well as half his face, his skull is being exposed because it's actually being melted by Unohana's Bankai. I think that's actually real. But Unohana wanted Zaraki to win because she knows that Zaraki has the potential to go even further than what she already perceives his power to be, or what she perceives his power was back then. So at in Unohana's flashback, Kid Zaraki was already, I believe, slightly more powerful than base Unohana without her Shikai or her Bankai. That's why she had both respect and fear of him. There's admiration and fear. So yeah, I believe that Unohana was healing Zaraki throughout their fight. Not just she was healing him um, before she unleashed her Bankai. She was constantly killing him, as we have seen, and then just bringing him back because to sort of awaken his power that he has unconsciously sealed. But I also believe that she was doing it during her Bankai state. So yeah, that's why we were shown and we were told by Zaraki himself that it melts. That's the whole power of her That's the sort of attack power of her Bankai. That's the special ability. It melts whatever it touches. But as we can see when half of Zaraki's body melted, and we can see his bones, his arms, bones, his half of his skull. It's sort of like he was also being healed at the same time as he is being melted. So Unhana is stuck to her plan to keep to keep on killing Zaraki and then keep on bringing him back to really, remove those sort of psychological constraints that Zaraki unconsciously placed upon himself so that he could enjoy the fights. So yeah, it's a very character-focused fight, very well animated. It feels short. I think a lot of people would feel that the fight is short because there are a lot of flashback sequences. As I've said, it's character-focused, and it does tend to go fast and then go slow for a time, let each other speak, or let uh, Unhana and Zaraki's thoughts sort of collide. So yeah, they sort of during Unhan's Bankai state, they sort of spoke to each other at um at the spiritual level where they weren't really speaking, but uh, their clashing swords were sort of doing the talking for them. So sort of I don't know, an allegory or something, or sort of similar to how in Naruto they said that um, high level ninja fights, those top tier ninja fights, they don't really need to speak with each other. Those two clashing forces, they can speak to each other through their punches, through their kicks, through the fight itself. So I believe that's similar here. And I'm also very excited that Saraki can now hear his son Pakto, but it's really annoying that they cut off the name and they still didn't let the viewers know the name of the son Pakto. She was already introducing herself. I'm assuming it's a she, it's a female Japanese voice. So she was already introducing herself, and then they just cut it off right before she said the name, and uh, it's really annoying. But this is a big deal. Zaraki never knew the name of his Zanpakuto. He never heard his Zanpakuto's voice before. So I'm very excited to see what his Shikai would look like. Or, if he ever really discovers his Bankai. Um, in regards to Ichigo and Renji and Namaiya or Nimaiya, I'm always confused with how to pronounce his name. Um, I'm not sure why the Asasuchis were sort of more angry with Ichigo than Renji in regards to how um, they feel that those two have cared for their Zanpakutos. Because it's strange because Ichigo has a very good connection with Zangetsu. The whole focus of the story was that um, Ichigo was unique compared to the other captains because um, he can actually see the personification of his Zanpakuto in his own spirit. He can actually see Sangetsu. He can actually see his hollow um, side, White Ichigo. So yeah, it's sort of strange. Maybe it has something to do with his mother being a Quincy, as Yuhabaha said, or Yuhabak, I forgot his name. Yeah. So I think that's why Nimaiya said that Ichigo needs to go back to his roots. He sent him back to the human world, back to the Kurosaki clinic. Maybe Ichigo would learn more about his mother from his dad, hopefully, because right now he doesn't even have a Zangetsu anymore. So, and Nimaiya refuses to reforge him one. He also calls him that. He also tells Ichigo that he's not a real soul reaper. He's not a real Shinigami. I think that he has an idea that Ichigo is also. I think they already know that he was part hollow, but his hollow, um, his hollow side already got mixed in with his Bankai. But I'm not sure if that's part of the reason why the Asasuchi were really mad at Ichigo for blending in his hollow side with his with his Zanpakuto spirit. Maybe I think that's a viable reason why they're really mad at him. Like they don't trust enough. Like Ichigo, it feels like Ichigo doesn't trust enough on Zangetsu that he needed to rely on his hollow because he did rely a lot on his hollow mask. He trained on how to use it, and now it's completely mixed in with his Zanpakuto spirit. So I think that's sort of degrading, maybe, I don't know, for Zangetsu to be mixed with the hollow just to get stronger, rather than Ichigo sort of honing his skills with Zangetsu himself. So I think it's very interesting. Um, I like the story of Ichigo so far that that he basically got outshined by Renji because I think Renji maybe had um, deeper connection with Sabimaru than Ichigo because Ichigo really sort of, I'm not sure what season was it, but he really did rely a lot on his hollow mask, on his hollow forms, more than his Bankai itself. So yeah, I'm glad that Renji Sabimaru is gonna get fixed by Nimaiya now, and I'm really curious to know what would happen or what's the full story behind Ichigo's mother being a Quincy, as Yu Habak have sort of implied.